Austin is still the great small city here in Texas where everyone is loving just about.
No, it's not. Oh, get out of my chair.
Okay, look, it's true. A lot of people are still looking to move here, and it is still a great place to live for a lot of people. That's why we have this YouTube channel. That's the whole thing we're doing here. You can take down the number, call, text, email us, because that's why we make the videos, is so that we can help you make the move here to anywhere in the Austin area. But in fairness, we got to tell you why people maybe don't like it here so much, and why some of the people who've lived here for a long time, or some of those that just got here recently, are leaving. And one of those is just the change in the feel of the area. You know, Austin has changed a lot over the last 20 or 30 years. It went from being a kind of a small hippie college town to kind of a flourishing city. And then in the last 3 or 4 years, it's just really exploded into something different. And while it's never really been a true Texan city, at least not in my lifetime, it's pretty different from the rest of Texas. I mean, it's always been the keep Austin weird culture. I'd say we've kept Austin weird, but it's weird now in different ways. So if you got attracted to the Austin of 10 years ago, 15 years ago, or if you grew up in that time, the Austin of today may not be the kind of weird that you like anymore. It's just not the same. You know, we've been known as the live music capital of the world, and that's getting a little tougher because of some of the other things I want to go through on this list of why people are leaving. But with all the people coming here, that's going to be probably, you know, as great as it is for the growth, it's the root of some of the other problems as well, because we have gotten to the point where it is just crowded just about anywhere you go. Now, the big one that gets brought up a lot is traffic. Of course, if you get out, we don't have really the capacity on the roadways here, and they're not really designed to handle the amount of people that we have here. So you're going to feel that crowdedness on the roadways for sure. But it's not just there, you know, it's everywhere you go. You got longer waits at restaurants. You want to go to a show or some kind of event, they're typically going to be booked out weeks or months in advance if it's something that a lot of people are wanting to go to. So it can be difficult, you know, just to get out and have a good time here. And I'll give you one example of this. I've been wanting to go see the Kill Tony show, which, if you don't know, it's like a live improv comedy stand-up. Go look it up if you don't know. But anyway, I've wanted to see that. It used to be at the Vulcan Comedy Club downtown. Now it's at Joe Rogan's mothership comedy place down there. And yeah, it's sold out in the next year. They put tickets up and they're gone. They're gone immediately. And of course, that's probably one of the most popular ones. But there are a lot of instances like that. I heard there's this new Japanese omakase type I don't even know what it is, but it doesn't matter because you can't do it. You can't get into it for months. So, you know, it's just making it that crowded feel. It can just be not as enjoyable sometimes. And I mean, if you look at the size just geographically of the Austin metro area and compare that to, you know, the DFW area or Houston, those are just massive sprawling areas. And while Austin is a big city, it's not nearly as big in terms of just physical size as those are. But with all the population growth we've had over the last few years, starting to feel like maybe it'd be good if we had a little bit of extra space here, because we went from just over 2 million to almost 2.2 million. Added up, it's just about 112 people every single day for the last 3 years. For 3 years straight, 112 people. That's how much the metro area has grown by. And it's just not really able to handle that many people here yet. So again, you've got the crowded problems, you've got the traffic, and you're going to be dealing with that traffic, because another big complaint, you know, if you're moving here from LA or San Francisco or New York or Chicago, some city that's got a robust public transportation system, you don't really have that here, at least not nearly to the level that some of those cities have. So you're very car dependent. We're not a lot of really walkable neighborhoods either, where you can walk down and, you know, get your groceries, go to restaurants, go to shops. Now those definitely exist. When you get downtown and some other new developments around, they are starting to put a little more emphasis on walkability. But by and large, the area as a whole, it's really not a very walkable area, and you don't have that public transportation really to fall back on, at least not to the same degree that you're going to have in some of those other cities. So you're going to have a car. And some people I know, I've talked to them, you don't really want to have to deal with having a car. You don't want the payments, you don't want the insurance, you don't want the liability of that. You just want to live in your community, and it's going to be really difficult for you to do that here. But sticking with the theme of everybody moving here, let's talk about why everybody moved here in the first place, or at least a lot of you, and it is because it's affordable, or at least it was. You know, everybody was looking to move to Austin because you could save some money. You don't have the state income tax. Just in general, the cost of living is lower. The housing price is lower. And I still think it's probably a little lower than some, you know, of the highest priced cities in the country. It's definitely now the most expensive city in Texas, especially in terms of housing. You've had housing go up, you know, some of them, you know, 30, 40, 50% in just a couple year time span. Now, the good news there is, as the market has cooled, as interest rates have come up to really some of the highest they've been, at least in my adult lifetime. It's cooled off a little bit, and some of those prices have come back down 10 or 20% in some areas. I think we looked, and a lot of these, if you just look at single family 3-bedroom homes, a lot of the neighborhoods around, or a lot of different suburbs around town have dropped around 8, 9, and 10% just in the last 6 months. So that can be pretty good news for you there if you are somebody who's kind of been holding off because you think it's gotten too expensive. And if that's you, again, hit me up here. Call, text, email, take this number down. I'll get you in touch with Luis. We've got the whole team at EXP Realty to help you make that move here to the Austin area. But again, just being honest, yes, it is considerably more expensive just to live here than it was, 2 or 3 years ago. And I think that's a nationwide problem. You see prices have gone up pretty much everywhere on just about everything over the last few years, but it definitely hit, especially that housing sector here, a little bit harder because we've just had so much growth. We've had all these companies. You got Tesla and Samsung and Google and Apple, and all those people that they bring with them are here. And a lot of people that came are having to deal with another reality of living in Texas in general, and that's something that's been, probably a con of living in the area for a long time. And that's the weather, but it's not just the heat. And that's all, it's always been the heat. Yes, it gets very hot in the summer, but this is another thing that's kind of changed recently that's not quite the same as it used to be because, we really didn't have, too much in the winter. The winter was pretty mild. And, if we saw snow, every 2, 3, 4 years, a little bit, it was nice. It was fun. And I think it still is mostly that way. But here over the last few years, we've had some pretty wild winter storms that come in and left snow and ice on the ground for just days and days when, usually, in 24 hours, that's mostly gone. And that's how it's always been. So now you're not only dealing with this extreme heat in the summer, where like this year, July, August, and most of September is just triple-digit temperatures every single day. You're still dealing with all that heat, and now you've got some winter stuff sometimes to contend with as well. And then other storms too. Spring and fall are typically nice, at least temperature-wise. But, we will get some storms coming in. And I'd say tornadoes are not super common, like, maybe up in the, farther in the plains and the middle of the country and the southeast. But you still will see some tornadoes. We had a hailstorm come through here just the other day before me recording this here. And some friends of ours had their car get dinged up pretty bad with some hail. So you might want to look into make sure you have a garage or somewhere to park your car here. But yeah, the weather is a big factor. And another thing kind of stemming off from the weather is our power grid here. Now, Texas is unique. Texas has its own power grid. It's not interconnected with the rest of the country in the same way that most of the rest of the country, rest of states are anyway are. You've got some major power grids, really 2 big ones. The way I understand it, Texas has, most of Texas is in its own here with ERCOT. And that has its pros and cons, and you can probably go debate that somewhere else if you want to. But generally, the pro is supposed to be you've got a competitive and self-contained grid right here in the state of Texas. You can, they compete, so you can choose your own provider. You can get different terms. You can pay wholesale prices, and sometimes it benefits you, and sometimes it doesn't. But that's just what you've got here, and that's kind of how it's been. But these extreme weather situations, especially some of the ones we've had in the winter, and even some of the ones in the summer, have kind of exposed some vulnerabilities there. Have had some blackouts. And just power outages in general, especially with the winter storms. In the summer, with all the heat and everybody's running that AC, there's been some blackouts from that. Got really close to having that again this year. Haven't at least I haven't seen it happen this year yet, but I know a few weeks ago I saw a story that said we got pretty close to it. So we're kind of right up against the limit of what that power grid can handle. Again, because of the conditions we've always had here with the heat, but all these new people. And that's just been one other part of the infrastructure that just has not caught up with it. And, as growth kind of slows down, and I'm sure it is just because of the general economy and the market and some of the job pullbacks with hiring and layoffs, even though I think that's kind of starting to tick back up here too. But it's not where it was a couple years ago, so maybe there's a little bit of time for them to catch up with that. It's still just not really where it needs to be yet to handle the load and the amount of people that we have here right now. But the last one here on my list is a big one, and if you made this far, drop me a like down there. I really appreciate it. It motivates me to keep putting out more videos, and while you're down there, you can hit that subscribe button too if you want to see more videos like this and others where we get out and take you and show you around the whole area. That's what we do here on the channel, and we explain things and help you get a good understanding of things like the property taxes here. We don't have the state income tax, but where they get you is definitely the property tax. It is the number one complaint really that I hear from people, because you're moving here for that affordability, and then you're like, that's my property tax bill. That much of my monthly payment is going to be property taxes. And yes, you're going to see effective tax rates easily 2% in a lot of the areas around Austin, and some places even up to 3 and even over 3% of an effective rate. Now maybe we're getting rid of that over 3% because they did just recently pass, at least in the legislature, a tax relief bill. It's a big tax relief bill, and there's a lot of things going on with that, but the biggest part of it is to do with property taxes, so it should reduce that down a little bit, but you're still going to see a lot of the area at 2.5% as far as an effective tax rate. And there's a lot that goes into that. There's different entities, that tax you, and then there's exemptions, like the biggest one being the homestead exemption, and that one, they're increasing that. Right now it's $40,000 are exempt. But it's going to be $100,000. They're doing some other things with the school tax rate that they're using state funds to fix that. All that has to be voted on in November, and the general election, I can't imagine that it won't go through. I mean, who's going to vote to pay more in taxes when, again, that's the number one complaint? I don't see it happening. So most likely this is coming. It's just got to be approved, and then we'll get that next year. But there's a lot to go into that there. If you don't understand how Texas property taxes are done, and you don't understand really what this property tax bill is, the relief is going to be, how it's going to impact you, whether you're already living here or whether you're going to be buying a house here, you're going to want to check out the video right there because I go through and explain all of it. So check that one out, and I'll see you there.